Hey everyone, welcome to the Tech and Real Estate live stream where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. I'm your host, Ariel Herrera, and today we have Mark, the financial firefighter. Hey Mark,
Hi, good morning.
back by popular demand. We had a really fun session a couple of weeks ago going over your buy box.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. I always have fun doing this.
Awesome. I'm going to share my screen here and just go over what our main topic is today and some housekeeping items. So usually the way we structure this, briefly go over what's going on in my world, and then straight into the main topic, which today is speed deal analysis. So what's going on in my world? If you attended last week's web scraping webinar or live stream, it's pretty much the same. Knee deep in Coffee Closers 4.0, which we'll be releasing end of month. And through this, personally, I've been learning so much. So over the last 10 years, I've worked as a data scientist for different companies. In January, I went full time into startup mode, which has really expanded my skills, not just working on modeling and data science, but also in DevOps, data engineering. So it's been really fun just expanding my skill set in data. Sometimes can be frustrating when there's like an error you can't figure out, but luckily, lots of resources, including LLMs like ChatGPT to help along the way too. So today is all about speed deal analysis, how you can actually analyze a deal in 5 minutes or less. And just as a quick background, the way I usually follow this is a 5 step structure for anyone who's new to real estate investing and how you actually go from wanting to become an investor to closing on a deal. And where we're hitting today is that third step, which is property search. So after you set your goals, cash flow, appreciation, your market, you ultimately come down to searching for properties that can fit your buy box. Sometimes property searching kind of goes in between those 3 steps as we get really excited. And as a beginner investor, you may be using a site like Zillow to see what listings are available in your market and determine, could this be a good investment for me? But one of the biggest pain points I hear is, how do I know if this is a good deal or a bad deal? Do I need to spend hours researching the property or less than that? So, going back to this funnel, the key that we and Mark talked about last time we did a live stream together was the buy box. Once you have your buy box set, so your parameters like 3 bedroom, 2 bath, zip code 07726, single family home under 500K, then you can know within 5 minutes if a deal is a bad deal or a good deal. And when you're looking at properties, another methodology that I like to follow is looking at 4 different criteria. I see a lot of newbies get stuck here at the top one at analyzing property financials to death before they even pick up the phone and talk to their agent or seller. That's probably not the right approach. You want to be able to screen properties quickly so you could look at many and ultimately come down to a small list to go after. But with that, we are here for the main event, which is Mark, the financial firefighter, here to provide a knowledge on his market. And we'll also look at other markets too for speed deal analysis. So I do want this call to be interactive. So if there are questions you have in terms of buy box, researching properties, understanding if a property is a good deal or not, let us know in the comments. Also, feel free to paste in an address that you want to be analyzed. Even if it's not in our market, Mark and I will do our best to analyze it. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing briefly. And Mark, super excited to have you here. Would love to hear a little bit more about your background for those that are new to financial firefighter.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yes, I'm out in Honolulu, Hawaii, so it's what 5:30 in the morning right now for me, but this time usually works best for me. So thanks for always having me on and inviting me on. But these are always fun, right? I think this is the biggest challenge a lot of newbie investors have is just trying to getting over that analysis portion of finding properties and figuring out their buy box and like we always tell people. I mean, there's no like cookie cutter way to do it, right? Everyone has their little whatever their market is. There's little differences or nuances, so that's why it's good to continuously run different numbers and see what works for your market, right? But I think what's going to be fun today is so I'm already getting like some zip codes put out on my side of the live. So I think after we go over maybe like your market or my market, we can use other zip codes and show how, even if you're new to a market, right, you can kind of get a real good idea of if this property, without even knowing much about that market, right, you can kind of get a real close idea if you want to like further pursue it, I think. So that's going to be fun, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, I already see that we have some zip codes here, so we'll definitely look at those. And let's quickly, though, Mark, first go over your market, just so that folks who may be new could understand the flow here. So your market is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you were looking for a deal at this time, I know you already have somewhat of a buy box. Could you explain what that is so we could filter on some properties that could be of interest?
Yeah, so my buy box is typically 3 beds, 1 bath. That's kind of be where I'm going to start at. Um, and then maybe 1,200 to 1,500 square footage is what I'm going to look at, and then under 250K. And then, like you said, we can filter out all the prefab homes or whatnot. So it's going to be single family, small multis. Um, but that's kind of how you kind of filter out yeah, condos, all of that apartments I'll take out to make it kind of streamlined as far as what I'm looking at.
Awesome. So we have a couple of properties here. So we've distilled already, like I think 3/4, so 75% of the properties. We've kind of removed them by just doing some simple filters. And now we have 252 properties, which is still a lot, Mark. Like, I bet you're not going to go through each and every one of these. So what would be your first steps would you start to look at these properties now, or would you sort in any way? How would you approach it?
Well, I think if you're really new to what you're looking at, I would kind of keep it more broad, like how it looks right now, and kind of just play around with it and look at all the properties and kind of get more familiarity with each zip code and the type of properties that are in that market. And then as you get a better idea of that, then there might be like certain specific zip codes that you're looking at, and then you can kind of narrow it down even more. But in the beginning, it's kind of good to kind of get an idea of what the whole market kind of possesses. So I think like right now, I would just take a look at probably what's ever at the top in the beginning and just kind of play around with it, run the numbers, and see what works.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's good advice. New to a market, try to broaden, kind of look at everything to understand what zip codes you may gravitate towards more and more like neighborhoods. Um, so at this stage, then, Mark, let's open up a property. Do you have a one that you want me to open here? There's five. You can't count the
Um,
target ad here.
yeah, just whatever. The first one is the easy. Yeah.
Sure, I'll take this one. All right, so this is a 4 bed, 2 bath, 2,000 square feet. What's your first step here? Are you running along the property details? Are you looking at the photos? What's the first step?
For me, it's just the photos first because it's right at the top. So I kind of just skim through that, see what I'm looking at, see what kind of condition, and is there a lot of work that might be done, but just get a general idea kind of what the property's offering, and maybe is there ways I can value add or whatnot, but just to get in, because sometimes it's maybe mislisted in a certain way, right? It might say, you can kind of tell maybe if they're using it as a multifamily or is it listed in proper. So I would just kind of glance through it and see what the property has. And from these, it looks like there's not going to be a lot of work done. It's pretty much rent ready, turnkey type of thing. But definitely this is, I mean, just from the pictures, you're probably assuming that this is not going to work for you. I mean, just it's kind of you can kind of tell it's on the higher end. You're going to be paying top dollar for it. Seems like, but just quickly looking at that. I mean, that's my initial take from the photos.
Yeah, turnkey, beautiful home, looks to be recently remodeled. If we look at the description here as well, Yeah. Looks like finishes like quartz countertops, which that may be your buy box. You're focusing on that, but usually these types of properties will have a lot lower cash flow if it even has cash flow to begin with from a long-term rental.
Yeah. I mean, and then this also comes in like maybe what your strategy is. If you're looking at short-term rentals, Airbnb, like something like this could fit into it, something on that more luxury side or nicer finishes and things like that. So it also depends, what your strategy might be. But just for myself, like long-term buy and hold, cash flow purposes, just from quickly looking at it, I mean, I'm pretty much gonna say it's not gonna probably meet a lot of my criteria, but like you said, you're gonna play around with it and kind of run the number and see how you could maybe make it work, right?
Yeah, exactly. Depending on what your exit strategy is, and we see here these stats are also pretty good to look at. Listed on the market for 2 days, over 1,000 views, which is a lot. It's very popular. A lot of views. Maybe they're boosting the listing, and 154 saves. That ratio, I mean, dependent on the market, you would know if that's like high or low. But from what I look at on a regular basis, having over 10% of people save the property is really high. And saving the property means they could be saving it to look at it later or even sharing it with someone else. It will automatically have it as a save. So that is something to note, that it might be a little bit harder to maybe negotiate on this property to lowball it since it looks to be in high demand.
So out of those three, like the days, the views, and the saves, what do you look at it, or what do you find most important out of those three numbers? Probably right there.
So I look, if it's under 30 days, there needs to be at least like a handful of saves. So for a really small market, it might just be 5 saves. Um, Now, I also look at the ratio of these two. So most markets I see, it's like the ratio is like 3 to 5% of people that land on the property actually save it. So the fact that this is like, I think a little over 10% or almost 10% is very high. It's a very popular listing.
Yeah, exactly. So, like you said, the low amount of days and the amount of saves and views almost kind of tells you like this is, going to be high demand, probably towards the asking price in a sense. So, you can still run it and view it, but that's once you to get more familiar, right? Like this is something that you might save it just to look at it later and see if it's still there, but you're probably going to move on, fairly quickly, by just glancing at it.
Agreed. So yeah, at that stage, what's great about having that buy box is that, like for both of us, probably we would just move on. We wouldn't even continue. We just go back to search. So within 1 minute, we're able to cancel that one out. Um, but let's actually take on the challenge to look at some other zip codes that maybe we're not familiar with.
Cool. Do you have? So I got Frank Contreras, old guy REI. He's what? So is another market okay? Or
Yeah, that'd
just
be great.
oh yeah.
I
So
guess
he's
going in
in.
order, maybe we
Okay,
could start with Joe's.
Joe. We can skip Joe.
We
No,
could
no,
skip.
no, no, no. Joe's a good guy.
All right, I am going to enter in 5311 5. This looks to be in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going to reset these filters. You ever been to Arizona?
I have not.
Oh no, this is
Yeah.
Wisconsin. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, he's in. Yeah, he's in Wisconsin.
All right. So let's say, Mark, you are new to this market. Maybe your budget is 350 cap, because we're not going to look into all these market stats as of right now. What would be your first steps into like trying to understand what the properties look like in this market and if they could be a good deal?
Yeah, I think the first thing is I don't want to go in blind. So of course I want to be talking to other investors or anyone in that market to just get a good idea of kind of what type of properties they have. Like, I always tell people I made a lot of mistakes. So even like Pittsburgh, where I invest in, basements was kind of uncommon for me. So that's kind of something that I probably should have been better aware of or prepared for, like especially when inspection reports and things like that come up. So like, if we're looking at Wisconsin, I would probably like, if Joe lives there, I'd be talking to him like, hey Joe, what type of properties or what do they have that might other markets may not have that I gotta kind of be aware of. So that would be kind of one of the first places that I would start. But typically, I'd probably go in with, like you're saying, what my budget is, maybe a little above that, because we're hoping to get disrespectful offers or below asking price, right? So I'm probably going to be looking at properties maybe slightly above my budget, but then I probably would be starting at maybe the 2 bedroom, 1 bath, to kind of open up the search a little bit and kind of see what the market offers. And then as far as the square foot, and I don't know how you feel about it, but the square footage I've kind of gone back and forth on. Some people want bigger square footage because they feel like there's more room. The tenants are going to stay longer. They have more space, to kind of grow into the property. But I also hear the flip side of that, where some people want a smaller not smaller, but less square footage because there's less maybe maintenance, repairs. If you do have turns or tenant or vacancies, you have less cost as far as to put back into the property to get it rent ready. So I kind of hear both sides of that kind of. So maybe you got to find that sweet spot of the square footage where there's enough space where families do have that space. But at the same time, it doesn't cost so much to do a turn on it.
Yeah, it's a good point. Square footage does play, I think, a pretty big factor, and it depends on the market. So for myself, just looking at some of these, like I like to always see square footage ratio to bedrooms is around like, let's see, like at least 400 to 450, which would mean a three-bedroom home is at least like 1,200 square feet. Uh, to have like enough space in the bedrooms. And then also looking at this property, this property kind of piques my interest here in that, or maybe opposite of piques my interest, maybe a stay away from. 4 beds, 1 bath. That's also something that's like out of my buy box. It needs to always be 2-to-1 ratio for bedrooms to bathrooms. Just in case I ever wanted to do a short-term rental or medium-term rental, if everyone has to share one bathroom, that's a little bit of a headache. What are your thoughts on number of bathrooms to bedrooms? Is that something you care about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's it's kind of, you got to also look at, like, if you were going to be a tenant, right? What are the things that you would want to be looking for in your property or where you're staying at, right? So like you're saying, you hopefully have 1 bedroom, at least a half bath, um, part of the unit, because it does make living there or make staying there a lot more convenient, right? As far as if you only have one bathroom, you have a family, and these are the type of things where you might increase your turnover rate, right? So that's definitely something that plays a factor as far as, like you're saying, the size, per room, square footage per room, and then also having that half bath or extra bath is super key, I think, for hoping to get long-term tenants that stay.
Agreed. Turnover is a critical thing. So Kyle also mentioned here that it's also could be useful to look in the reverse and look to see what something will run out for before like diving in too deep, which I think is also something that's pretty good. So not sure about you, Mark, but sometimes what I'll do is just quickly open up a property. I see here it's 300K, and then if I go down, if they have rent available, which this one does, 2,400 a month. I kind of gauge like that 1% rule. So it's not going to be like a cash cow, but it's not too far off of like 3,000, which would make it 1%. So it's something that probably could cash flow, but at a lower amount. Is there something, do you do something similar when trying to ballpark if a property will cash flow?
Yeah, I think the working in reverse and the rent is helpful, but I also think that's where maybe some of my issues came into play, where I it was almost simple looking at it backwards, in a sense where if you have this rent number, and if it the numbers make sense, then it's almost like I almost was oblivious to certain things about the property, I guess, in a way. So I think knowing your rent number is important, and like you're saying, if it's going to work. But I think the bottom line, I think like Coach Carson, folks, you can't change the property after you buy it in a sense, right? You're buying the property, and now you're kind of stuck with whatever the location or the size, whether I guess in a sense or bedroom. So you can't really alter that too much. Where the numbers you can kind of, I guess in a way, you can change your insurance or you can put more down payment or things like that. So you can kind of play with the numbers a little bit more. But as far as the property itself, you want to make sure you're buying a good property. So I think,
Yeah.
just from my experience, I think the rent kind of caught my eye a lot of times. And maybe that's where some of my problem properties have come from because I got caught up in the rent that was estimated or projected in a sense.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I think I've I've also been at fault there too. So actually, before we look at other property, great question from Troy. I'm going to highlight this one here, which is what is one thing in the beginning that you did when buying your first couple of properties that now you would not do?
Me personally, the biggest thing, and I've talked about it before, is I wish I had an agent that was. I mean, I always say he's a great agent. He works super hard, but he was also more like a yes agent in a sense, where he would agree with maybe whatever I was saying in a sense, and he didn't want to tell me no, like these issues with this property probably. So I think that's the one thing is find an agent that is willing to tell you no or willing to tell you like this is not a good property or no this is a bad offer or something. I think that's the only thing, and as long as you know that going in with your agent, right? I mean, if you let's say you do work with an agent though that says yes to everything, and you know that though, I think that is a little bit different because you can also shy away from certain things on your own because you're aware of how your agent operates. But for myself, I kind of just maybe took his word a little bit too much in a sense, and I think that not necessarily I wouldn't say I bought bad properties. It's just properties that maybe don't provide me as much upside down the road in a sense. So I could have made better purchases, I think. So that's the number one thing is find an agent that's probably willing to tell you you're making a bad move, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. Having that investor friendly agent willing to give you that tough advice. And I think for myself, probably one of my mistakes or things I wouldn't do today is being like emotionally tied to the property. I mean, it's hard to be 100% not emotionally tied, but since I did like several house hacks, I knew I was going to live in the property. So it's like I kind of fall in love with it as like someone who's going to be living in it for a year and may overlook certain things. Like my first property, there were a bunch of little things that the flippers did wrong. Like, the electric outlet's not working correctly, or the water faucet being on the opposite, like hot and cold, um, not putting like the railing appropriately, all these little things that I just said with my agent, like, let's move forward if they are willing to fix them from the inspection report. But afterwards, I had issues that were more deep rooted, like some plumbing issues. So I think sometimes when you see all these like micro issues that an inspector may notice, there could be a lot of things behind the walls that they can't see that may be a problem down the line. So future wise, if I see a bunch of micro issues, I'm going to probably assume there's a bigger one that I can't see and move on from the property.
Absolutely. But man, I might have to move to Wisconsin. There's some nice homes.
Yeah,
I
really
don't want to
nice.
move by Joe, but I mean, there is some nice homes here.
So, what about this one where it's let's look into one of these properties and see would we buy it, yes or no? It's 5 bedroom, which is a lot, 1,900 square feet. What's the first step you're going to do, Mark, to see if you're interested in this deal?
Yeah, I'm gonna just like I said, skim through the photos real quickly. Um, Oh,
Looks to be in good condition. I wonder if they're counting this sunroom as an extra bedroom.
that's definitely something you're gonna look into if you move further, right, or whatnot. But
Focusing on the kitchen. So I find a lot of newbies may say like, "Oh, this looks old," right? Like doesn't have like the white countertops and everything, but it doesn't mean that it can't be rented out. So,
yeah,
Mark, could you explain that concept a bit more?
yeah, I think it goes back to like you were somewhat touching on is getting emotionally attached to a property, or there's certain things that maybe you personally want in a place that you're gonna live. And I think that's also something people always struggle with the idea of investing remotely or out of state. And I think sometimes that's somewhat of an added benefit is because you're not actually physically there, so you don't get really too attached to some of these properties. And I think that helps you make better decisions on what you're going to purchase. So like you're saying, sometimes for me, like I would be fine living here in a sense, right? And as a tenant standpoint, as long as I get the basic necessities, it looks livable. Like you're saying, it's some fairly turnkey, and it's yes, you have it's well, I can't think of the term. But it's maybe return on your investment, I guess, in a sense, from how much money you're going to put into to renovate the kitchen, or uh, what kind of additional appliances you're going to put in, or high end things. So it's also, is that going to increase your rent, right? So you also got to look at it from that standpoint, as far as you personally may want this certain countertop or this refrigerator, or stainless steel appliance, but is it actually gonna increase the amount of rent that you're going to collect? So that's always what you're going to have to factor in. So it's not always buying high end things in a sense. Now, maybe if you're doing a flip, right, and you're trying to command a higher sale price, but if you're looking at like as a rental, or long term rental, and you're just looking at cash flow and you want tenants, quality tenants in there, you want a livable, safe, clean place. To me, that's the way I'm going to look at it.
I completely agree. Yep. Um, it may not be to your luxury standards or what maybe you would want to live in, but doesn't mean that it's not still a very livable home. And also, someone may not want to pay an extra $600 for rent just to get quartz countertops. So these are all things that could be helpful to look at the rental comps for it. So with that, Mark, let's move on to the next zip code. And this time, let's get a little bit more in depth with the location as well. So we're going to choose Kyle's here, which is 52802. 52802. This is bringing us to Iowa. I'm going to,
Kyle, if you're there, maybe because you can throw in more from your buy box, and that way we can also play with it that way. So if you're
yeah.
still there, throw in kind of what your buy box is.
Also, I'm going to cheat a little bit here and I'm going to pull. Um, this is a free tool that I collaborated with Boker on, um, who the co-founder of Boker I used to work with at Folio. So I want to quickly just research this property or this area, which is Davenport, Iowa, because I have never explored this area before. So what this is doing, this is a free tool in case you wanted to use it. You could do market research, and it pulls information across the web to consolidate some information about the market. It uses an LLM, so similar to like a chat GPT, except it's trained on a certain set of instructions on how to get this data, which is the instructions that I worked on with the team. Takes about 20 seconds or so, because it's pulling information directly from sources like Redfin. And this should give us an overview. But while that's running, let's look. So this is Davenport is right on the border before Illinois.
All right, did you buy your Vegas tickets yet for the ORAD event?
Not yet. Last year I bought it like 8 weeks before. I need to definitely step it up and try to do it immediately.
Are you gonna plan anything like a coffee closers event or showcase of your software or anything?
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, you should have, because I mean, I know people are going probably a couple of days ahead or staying after, because I think Monday's a holiday. Yeah, you should have like I don't know if seminars or, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Mark. I will definitely consider that. But yeah, so quickly transitioning back to this market research, looks like this area has a population of about 100K. Median sale price, a little less than 200K, which I really like. Median days on market, 20. So it's definitely probably still somewhat of a seller's market. Look at some employers. Deere & Company, the agriculture manufacturing company is there. Kraft Heinz, I didn't know that. Some attractions and new development doesn't look to be too much. Overall, looks like it could be a cash flowing area with this median sale price being pretty low. So let's dive into it. All right, so I'm going to reset these filters. Or actually, I'll leave these filters for now because this is still underneath 375K. So, Mark, of these photos, of these properties, any of them standing out to you if you were to like first land on this page and start to browse this market?
Let's see. Let's go with that. Above the one, there's I think 146. I want to take a look at that one. I think one above that.
Awesome. So I am going to put two views here. One of the property card and another one of it in Google Maps. So we could look at a little bit more of the location too. And there it was. This little guy. Very green. All right. So, Mark, what are the first steps?
Yeah. Oh, I'm just kind of like 2 bedrooms. It's kind of big, but yeah, I'll skim through the photos. Building night. Yeah. Let's see.
What are your thoughts of properties that have, I'm assuming this is like a chimney that it goes up?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes they're just there. I mean, they're there for decoration and not, or, so I make sure, see if it's operable or if it's still working. And that's something I would, definitely, if that was my market, I'd have a better idea of, I guess, servicing on it or maintenance or the hazards, or if there's more insurance necessary for having something like that in the property. But definitely I'll look deeper into that. But and then as just from the photos too, I mean, I'm gonna be thinking about as far as landscaping or yard service, and as far as that seems like a lot of work to maintain. Um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely, like the numbers, I think was it Volker that you're looking at before
Yeah.
this, but based off the median, yeah, this, it's below the median. I'd definitely be, looking further into this property just briefly off of the photos and see some water or dampness in there. So that's definitely something to like I said, same thing too. I don't know if that's common
Mhm.
for that area, but it just somewhat of a red flag, not a red flag, but just be aware of it and something I'd look further into. Um, but yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of space. I don't know if this, like I said, I was kind of shocked that there was only two
Right,
bedrooms.
because it looks to be
So
pretty
I don't,
big. But yeah,
yeah,
so I think this whole bottom was used as like some type of business. I'm a little bit confused why there's like a toilet in the corner and a sink, but maybe it's just like a one-man shop
yeah,
and he kind of did everything in one space.
yeah. So it definitely would pique my interest, like as far as what opportunities I could use this property for. And I bet Kyle probably is looking into this right now, if I had to guess, but he's probably looking deeper into something like this property if it did pop up, just to see what possibilities you have here. But
Yeah, and I think
uh,
Trade Better, hey Trade Better, has a great point here that because we see so much water, we definitely would want to check out if this is in a flood zone, which I'm not sure you've seen this, Mark, but recently Zillow has added this like climate risk as well. And they
oh
break it
yeah,
out
yeah,
from flood, fire, wind, air, and heat. And it looks like this one is potentially in a flood zone.
yeah. Just yeah, I better not say it on your channel. I want you to get canceled. I was gonna say don't put out any certain signs out front if just in case. But
Yeah, so for myself, this is a no. Like I would only be looking at where it's in the non-flood zone for less insurance and also just less risk. But if your strategy was like an Airbnb and you wanted to have a dock where like people can come and then kayak and things like that, maybe you would take that risk and it's worth it.
that's a great point. So I think so. Right now we're kind of talking about the newbie investor or someone trying to determine their buy box. But if I was someone that had a bigger portfolio and a certain amount of cash flow or net worth or whatnot, this is probably something that I would definitely be interested in because for a lot of, like you're saying, newbie investors, new investors, when they see that hazard risk or possible insurance issues, they might shy away from it. So that might take away a lot of your competition. So a lot of this analyzing deals and your buy box, it also depends what part of the journey you're on and how much reserves you might have or if you could handle a total loss because of a flood on this. So I think that also is something you got to be aware of as someone further along their journey. This might be an attractive property because they could probably get a good deal on it because of the hazards is going to shy away a lot of investors or a lot of new investors or whatnot.
That's a really great point. Where your portfolio is today and then how you can balance and manage risk. Also, so this property, the Zestimate is lower, which it's kind of stating that this property may be overvalued. Also, not sure if you've seen this too, Mark. Realtor just added maybe about a month ago a new like map, so you could see like the value of almost like the Zestimate but on a map. So if I take this same property, and this is something that like I would look at just to see like is this property truly maybe overvalued. So we have the same property here, and then towards the bottom they should have, or maybe it's only for certain properties. Let's see. Maybe it's neighborhood and schools. Okay, or maybe it's under home value. Yep. And okay, yeah, not too many properties because it's a little bit more rural towards this side of the highway, it seems. But realtor did introduce a map where they have like their estimate just plotted throughout the area. So we could see like more expensive properties are towards like this upper part of Davenport, which might probably is near downtown, as well as by Old Chicago. And this property looks to be pretty similarly valued against others that are along this coastline. And it looks to be like there's some that are a little bit less right across the highway, probably because they don't have that. Um, they have like maybe less acres. Yeah, it's a pretty cool tool. Would encourage anyone who likes to kind of geek out on some of the numbers to check it out.
Yeah, definitely promising, but it's just like Trade Better says, and that insurance or flood insurance is going to be kind of that deciding factor, I think, as far as how comfortable you are, right? And that everyone has a different comfort level when they're taking on risk, right? So I think that's the biggest thing. And the where insurance is for a lot of people, I think that's kind of the number one concern for a lot of people right now is figuring out their insurance. This definitely would be a probably challenging property to move forward on just from uncertainties with insurance right now.
Agreed. A lot of things up in the air with that. And we have a great question on flood zone. So, for his, if a property is in a flood zone, Mark, would you suggest to look at like historical, what has occurred for the property, to be able to mitigate the risk?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's going back to again, your comfort level. So I think there's some people, especially newer investors, once they see that 10 out of 10 or they see that hazard, it's difficult for them to move on no matter what information they come across or whatnot. So that's also why we always talk about knowing other people in that market or investing in that market or piggybacking off of other people's systems, right? So there is a lot of people that probably this Zillow might show a 10 out of 10, but there's someone that might live in that area or way more familiar from a actually being, kind of boots on the ground. Like, oh no, that's not even, they're just basing it off these calculations and whatnot. But as far as actually being a hazard, so that's definitely a reason why, like you're saying, you'd want to maybe bookmark this, see if you can find someone in the area that you know or in the communities that you're in and get more information and get a little more detailed, I guess, knowledge of how risky it actually is and not just some sort of kind of calculation in a sense. But yeah, that's a definitely good point from Hyder. And I know Hyder, Hyder's a super smart guy and he would definitely, I bet he would like fly there and he would check it out and he'd run out, he'd do like water samples and all these calculations and tests, but he would definitely get a better idea of how risky it actually is.
Yeah, these are things you can do for like additional inspections, not just the initial one, but you could do like water test, structural engineering, and other ones as well. Uh, One other thing that I was going to mention. So I think, Mark, when someone lists their property, don't they have like the seller's disclosure? So they have to say if there's been like a recent flood for the property.
To
Am I
their
wrong?
knowledge, right? So yeah, so that's one way they could, possibly get away with not putting it down on the disclosure. But yes, yeah, they got to fill out a disclosure saying they're aware of this or this happened during this time or like you're saying or like I was saying they can put not to my knowledge, right? It could have been something that happened before, but yeah, they're supposed to disclose any type of issues that have come up and um, but but that's also I think why like we were kind of talking about it. It's good to look at multiple properties,
Yeah.
even if you're not buying it or even if it's not maybe in your buy box, but you just start picking up on little details,
Mhm.
right? Like like Trey Better, he sees these photos and he's like he sees the water around it, he sees the area. Oh, first thing I'm gonna do, maybe insurance
Yeah.
flood zone, right? There's someone like seeing dampness in the basement or some water, but the more properties you look at, they're just little things that start to you stand out more or you can pick up on, and those are just things that are always going to maybe catch your eye as you start looking at further properties.
Agreed. I think those are great points to mention. Just continue to look at properties, mark them down if you can, and then you'll start to understand trends. So before we move on from this one, so I want to go to the next zip code, Mark. But I know a lot of newbies, they land on this page, they see that there's a property, $20,000, and they're like, oh man, this is amazing. I can, buy this property for so low and maybe be able to buy like four more because it's such a low amount. Before we even like look, before even glancing at it, what are some maybe red flags that pop to mind of why this is so low in price in comparison to others?
So it goes back to knowing your market, because there is some areas that, I mean, maybe 20,000 a little bit on the real low end, but there is still some markets where you can find homes, for $50,000 or whatnot, and I guess they would still be considered turnkey in a sense. But there is some markets out there that still have these type of properties. So it goes back to knowing kind of what the median or what the uh, price points of your market is. But initially, just off the top of my head, is like you're saying, it's either going to be a property that's going to need a lot of work involved, and am I at that comfort level, especially being an out of state investor? Do I have the resources or connections where I can do a rehab from a distance and get that much work done? So those would be the initial thoughts that come across my head.
Yeah, agreed. Knowing your market, knowing that it's probably really low for what you usually look at for two beds, two baths. And if we were to just quickly scan these photos, it of course is a property that may need to even be brought down to the stubs. So that's whenever you see a property that's super low price, usually means it needs a lot of work. All right. So let's go to Old Guy REI, has a zip code here, 63138. And thank you for also putting your buy box criteria as well. So we will navigate here, which is in St. Louis, Missouri, which St. Louis is very popular for investors. I'm going to apply all. And the buy box is 3 beds, 1 bath, and 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. Let's try to use an exact match here.
And then I'm not sure if you're familiar with Frank, old guy REI, but the one or not. I mean, there's many cool things about him, but one cool thing is he actually invests out of state, but he's in like four or five different markets. So like we're talking about trying to determine your buy box and know your market. He's investing from California, but he's investing. I believe it's 4 to 5, but he's investing in multiple markets. So yeah, so that's pretty cool that he's able to determine what his buy box is in multiple areas.
Agreed. And this is an absolute beautiful buy box. Why? Because we've been able to distill probably like 1,000 listings to just two. And so now, like, I find a lot of newbies say, how can I keep track of what's happening in the market every single day? There's so many new listings. There usually isn't that many new listings when you have a tight buy box. So you can really like track it on a daily basis. So yeah, really well done, Frank.
Yeah, and because he's in multiple markets, it's good to have a tight buy box so that he's not getting flooded with, 100 different properties in each market that he's in. So like you're saying, because he has it really scaled down, he's only getting really these properties in each market that falls into his criteria. So it makes it a lot easier for him, when he is looking at properties to kind of, I guess, save time in a sense, right?
Exactly, saving time too. So if I just open both of these up, um, one good thing that's mentioned here, things trade better, is also like how do you look at days on market, Mark? So one of them has 6 days on market, and the second one is 15 days on market. Okay, so not too far apart. But how does days on market influence how you analyze a property when you're skimming through it?
It's kind of like that gauge in a sense where, you know, you're probably going to get notified fairly when it's listed or whatnot, kind of in that initial phase of it being put on Zillow. And then, we're most of us, we're not trying to pay market price or list price. So, it's something that we're going to monitor because it falls into our buy box. And then we're going to kind of just see and kind of monitor, like you're saying, the views, the saves, see what kind of, I guess, uh, reaction I guess it's getting from the market in a sense, like who's viewing it, how much traction is it getting, and then like you're saying, you probably already have an agent also that you're working with, and now your agent can start kind of maybe getting feelers out there with the listing agent as far as kind of, hey, we've seen this property, it's been on the market this many days, whatnot, kind of just touch base with them and just let them put feelers out there in a sense. But the days on market, yeah, and that it also goes back to kind of knowing your market. And like you said, you looked it up earlier. But that was a different market. But that other market that you looked up, it was I believe it was like 20 days on market might have been the average, right? So that's kind of where you're going to use this days on market that you see here compared to kind of what the average in your market is going to be, right? And now you're going to kind of gauge off of that. Okay, after this certain point, now I might find like a motivated seller in a sense, right? Because the property is sitting longer than it might traditionally sit for a new listing, right? So, but yeah, definitely. So, like you're saying, yeah, right here, what it says 20 days on market for St. Louis, right? So, it's still under that. You're at 15 days, so this is kind of probably where the seller is going to be start reevaluating or evaluating, kind of what kind of attraction they're getting, right? Are they getting a lot of interest in it? Is it kind of um, a cool, and nobody's kind of calling about it or touching base? So this is probably the time when the seller's probably going to start. Okay, I might have to lower it. What is my next move here? But this is also like when your agent might want to reach out and start kind of, hey, it's been sitting there for this amount of time. What's and getting a feel for like what position the seller's also in, right? Like, are they trying to move? Are they trying to relocate? Are they trying to move up, into a bigger property? Or what's the situation the seller's into? So that's all information that you're going to start wanting to kind of maybe get a better understanding of, so that you can determine how motivated this seller might be to wanting to move off this or move this property. Yeah.
Love that. And I know for like motivation, a lot of folks will look at was there a recent divorce? Is it inheritance? And honestly, like if you are distilled down just to your buy box, it doesn't take that much effort to have your agent call the other agent and get the specifics. And it's usually, someone selling sometimes not because any of those things. Like you said, Mark, maybe they just want to move to a bigger home. Maybe they have to move for work, but it's local or something. And you're not going to know that unless there's a conversation had. But another thing that I see too is that sometimes properties stay on market longer because they're listing it as if like like a first time home buyer is going to buy it, but it's an older home that's maybe well maintained but does need work to get it ready. So someone who's like looking for their first home may not want that, so the messaging is off. Whereas for an investor, it's like a gold mine. Like, yes, a property that's well maintained just needs a little bit of work, and I can make it a cash flowing property.
I think a great thing to remind people too, though. So it actually came up in the school community. Jared, REI Jared, made a post, and he said, um, I guess he's been following this property in his market, and the seller's agent told his agent to stop messaging them. So, but I want to just remind people that get comfortable with, I guess, being rejected, or get comfortable with hearing no, and just realize that you're going to hear that a lot more than you hear yes or get an offer accepted. And that's how you're going to get good deals, right? If you just keep doing the work and keep putting offers out there. But so the funny thing was, Jared put he showed the screenshot that the seller's agent said, or basically said, stop messaging us. And then my comment was, well, they didn't say to stop calling, right? So it's like you can still figure out ways to put offers in, or try to, because you never know, right? If the property's still sitting out there, the seller may change
Yeah,
their mind at some point, right? Because you don't know. But that's the one thing. Just get comfortable with yeah, hearing no or getting rejected.
I completely agree. It will happen a lot, but don't let it kind of stop you from continuing. Just recognize it's going to be part of the process. And Joe has a great comment here.
Ah, he's back. I tried to block him, but yeah, yeah. Joe, I'm not gonna even read what he wrote,
Bears and
but
Packers.
as
What?
yeah, as you can tell, Joe is in Wisconsin, so he's a Packers fan, and I am unfortunately a Bears fan still yet.
Yeah, hopefully the O line
Yeah,
holds up a little bit more this weekend. But
don't. There's a few. Oh, actually, Trade Better is a Patriots fan, so we just got destroyed by the Patriots, and there's a few people I'm avoiding right now.
I understand. I'm not in a good camp as a Giants fan too. A lot of bad teams in the NFL this year.
Oh, you're a Giants fan. Oh, I can make fun of you then because we're at least better than you.
It's officially turned into a clown show. But going back to the listings, I want to actually ask you, Mark. So sometimes there will be like one photo or two photos, and that could be one like the property, the agent's like rushing the listing and is going to put the photos later in the day or the next day, or it could be that they just don't feel ready to show the property. So sometimes descriptions come a lot more in play. And if you were just like browsing this description, what would be of interest and anything that's to shy away from or that's a positive?
I guess as an investor, you're kind of same thing, right? You're kind of filtering out a lot of the noise in a sense. So a lot of the seller, the listing agent, they're trying to make it as attractive as possible, and put all this fluff into the description. So as an investor, same thing, right? You're trying not to get emotionally attached, right? So you're really kind of filtering out. So even like this attention investors and all of this, you're really not paying too much attention to that. You're really sticking, to your basics as far as the bedroom count, bathroom count, square footage. You might look for little notes as far as like, like this one says like Section 8, right? Is this property meet certain criteria for can you do short-term rental? Section 8. So is there little kind of nuances to it that can be more attractive? But as far as all of this, these other things, as far as intention investors, you're trying to block out. But also definitely, but transit is important, right? A
Yeah.
lot of times you want to find it important for your tenants, because that makes it easier for them to stay. uh, you know, Parking as an investor, that's something I'm way more um, looking into, as far as what kind of parking is provided for these properties now. Is it only street parking? Is there attached garage, whatnot? So those are things that I'm looking at a lot more.
Agreed. Looking at things that a tenant would find favorable. Also, when I just like glanced at this, excuse me, I was just seeing like values per month, which would signal to me that this property is not vacant. But as you were talking, Mark, I actually like really read the description, and it looks like this is actually like someone's selling part of their portfolio. They're selling three single family homes um,
Yeah.
as a package. So that's something that could be very interesting um, to maybe acquire several properties at a bundle. Maybe the investor owns the property outright in terms of like not having financing on it. So maybe you could do seller financing to be able to acquire three properties at once. a lot of options.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think that's where, softwares like coffee closers and things like that can, like you're saying, we're using Zillow now, but your, coffee closers does streamline a lot of these systems to make things a lot easier where you're not jumping from tab to tab, and it helps you evaluate properties a lot quicker. So like you're saying, like seller finance. I think even the coffee it has like that how to make a seller finance offer, right? You find that property, and it kind of comes out with that template, and it can send out to the listing agent or the seller, right? So that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that. And we'll definitely need to get you as well as some other folks as beta testers for our 4.0 that's releasing pretty soon. A lot of new things that we're implementing and also things that we're simplifying. We also have, I know we're getting close to time, Mark. Do you have a great question here? What strategy do you think would be best for a person trying to purchase their first rental property in New Jersey, where price is so high and with interest rates still being relatively high? And this is a question, like, regardless of New Jersey, one that I do hear a lot for like expensive markets. So, what are your suggestions there?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is it's really understanding yourself. So, I live in Hawaii, same thing, prices are very high. You're talking about $1 million median single family homes. And that's kind of the dilemma that I faced when I started this journey. And I think like I go back to there's people making money still in Hawaii. Yeah, it's a lot more challenging. It can be done. You may have to get more creative, like you're saying. Might have to find like a sub two, seller finance. Maybe you have a big down payment you can put down, but people are still doing it. However, you also got to realize that your returns might be smaller, things like that. So for me, investing remotely, um, I found it better returns, but I also know that it's something that I feel that I can handle from the maybe the stress level or being at a distance. But I also know people that is impossible for them. They have to be hands on. They need to be closer to their properties. So I always go back to you really got to understand yourself first, and if investing remotely is an option for you, or you're comfortable with that, I definitely feel like that is probably the way to go if you're in a high market area where maybe you don't have the cash or the amount of reserves or enough for the down payment, that you want to start your journey as soon as possible. Because as you know, I know there's so much to learn, and just getting started is going to help you tremendously, right? Because no matter how successful someone is in real estate, they've made tons of mistakes, I'm sure, along the way. And just getting started as soon as you can makes the learning process, I guess, a lot quicker in a sense, right? The sooner you can start, you can learn from these mistakes, and then you can get better and better. So for myself, I mean, I think if you're in a high market area, really just evaluate yourself as a person and see, if you're capable of investing remotely, because like I said, there's just some people that cannot. There's that's something that they're not going to do. And then you just got to get creative, right? You might have to do a partnership with someone, but figure out the quickest way to get your foot in the door, I think.
Great words of advice. Quickest way to get your foot in the door. Decide if going out of state is for you. If you are looking in state, maybe look at creative ways like creative finance, like partnering, um, like house hacking as well. Another suggestion, just because I'm from the New Jersey area, is you could look at properties that are, built in like the 70s that have uh, like a big garage or a full basement and see if you can do some sort of conversion there. That could be a little bit tough depending on what like local laws may be, but maybe a way to get you in as well. South Jersey is an area that's has had a lot of hype over the last 4 years of people moving down there, Tom's River and such. That's a lot more affordable. But yeah, great question.
How's permitting like in New Jersey? Like as far like you're saying, converting a garage or whatnot. Like, is it a big challenge?
I haven't done it personally, but from what I've seen of others, that it is like a bit of a process. And technically you could do things without the permit, and then when you try to resell it, it's not going to work. Like I had a neighbor that they made their whole backyard like beautiful. They did like a new deck, they put pavers, all this stuff, and then they went to sell their house. And then luckily, like the husband, he was very like handy, but it took him like 2 weeks to undo everything because it wasn't permitted. So,
Hmm.
yeah, but
Well, we'll see if Elon can fix that.
yes, we'll see. Well, with that, thank you so much, Mark. And I just want to briefly just show for next week for folks that may be interested, we will have a little bit more of a tech overview with Ty Garrett, who is the CEO of DataFlick, going over lead generation using data and insights. They leverage AI and other tools to help find the best leads for a given market. So we'll be going through that. But awesome, Mark. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. I love doing these. Hopefully, I can block out Joe and Brett and all those guys. But hi there, guys. Thanks for always stopping by.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Oh, one quick thing can I say before I really just anyone out there go check out Frank Contreras, Old Guy REI, because he is selling shirts for the ORAT event, and he's trying to raise proceeds to give to the Blind Center. So the event's being held at the Blind Center in Vegas, and he's trying to raise money to kind of give it as a thank you to the Blind Center. So he is selling shirts for the One Rent at a Time community. So go check him out.
That is excellent. If you have the link, or maybe I can find it afterwards, I'll try to pin it to this video as well.
Okay, yeah, shoots, yeah. I don't want to press anything and it might end this thing.
No worries. Well, thanks, everyone.